The U.S. Supreme Court today rejected a controversial legal theory that state legislatures have almost unlimited power to decide the rules for federal elections and draw partisan congressional maps without interference from state courts.
The United States Supreme Court has decided in a 6-3 decision to preserve our democracy. And while that may seem a bit hyperbolic, the details of Moore versus Harper really reveal that our democracy was on the line. In this case,
the so-called independent state legislature theory regained attention after the 2020 presidential election, when then-President Donald Trump's allies raised it as part of an effort to reverse the election outcome. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the opinion for the 6-3 majority in this case known as Moore v. Harper, which stems from a dispute in North Carolina. Roberts was joined by Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Ketanji Brown Jackson.
According to The Atlantic, in Moore versus Harper, the court was resolving whether there is a doctrine of constitutional interpretation known as the independent state legislatures. If the court had concluded that there is such a doctrine, it would have conferred on state legislatures plenary, exclusive, and judicially unreviewable power both to redraw congressional districts for federal elections and to appoint state electors who cast the votes for president and vice president on behalf of the voters of the states. It would have meant that the partisan gerrymandering of congressional districts by state legislatures would not be reviewable by the state courts, including the state's highest courts. This would have given state legislatures the ability to override the will of the people, not only through their gerrymandering efforts, but directly when it came time for state legislatures to cast their electoral votes for president vis-a-vis the Electoral College. Here are a few more details about this particular case and why it was so important. But also keep in mind there were 3 justices, Alito, Gorsuch, and Clarence Thomas, who dissented from the majority, essentially saying that they wanted to empower states to have the ability to override the will of the people. It's important to keep that in mind because it's possible. It is very possible that a similar case will come forward in the future. And this was by far one of the most direct threats to our democracy because of the power of the Supreme Court and their decisions having the effect of law. Listen to Robert Reich, who was the former labor secretary underneath Bill Clinton, as he explains.
Republicans have a scheme that could remove American voters from the process of selecting their next president. You heard that right. A case headed to the Supreme Court could let Republican-controlled state legislatures overrule the will of the people and pick the next president of the United States without you. This all hinges on a radical idea called the independent state legislature theory. It's at the heart of a case the Supreme Court will decide called Moore versus Harper. The decision in this case could give state legislatures the power to disregard the popular vote and substitute their own slate of electors, pledged to whomever they wish. We've already had a preview of what this could mean for our democracy. The independent state legislature theory underpinned a major legal strategy in Trump's attempted coup.
Just look at one thing. The legislatures of the states did not approve all of the things that were done for those elections. And under the Constitution of the United States, they have to do that.
Trump was wrong, of course, but the current Supreme Court could make him right.
And thankfully, with the assistance of Chief Justice John Roberts and even Brett Kavanaugh, the majority sided against this decision, this theory of independent state legislatures. But I really want people to understand that when we say we're fighting for our democracy, we are fighting at every single level, whether it be at the school board level, on the local level, where we see activism from organizations like Moms for Liberty overthrowing school boards on behalf of a radical conservative agenda. If we're talking about at the city council level, whether we're talking about the organizing that these Republicans are doing, these conservatives are doing at state levels. And not only in the federal level in terms of elections, but the Supreme Court. The conservative movement not only has actual foot soldiers, fascists who are in the streets causing chaos and committing acts of violence, but they also have a judicial strategy to affect the entire nation in one fell swoop. And so yesterday was a tremendous victory for democracy, But we can't take our eyes off the ball, because this is not the last time we're going to see the Republican Party and the conservative movement try to use the Supreme Court in order to do away with democracy. And if they can't accomplish it there, do remember that they have activists and apparatchiks at every level of our system, federal, state, and local, attempting to do the bidding of a radical conservative agenda by overruling the will of the people.